Hi guys, it's Nicole. Lisa and I are back with Creating with Collections. This is volume 5. As a reminder, we are playing along together and we're using Doodlebug Tinsel Time. This is the 5th run of this series that I kind of created, and I love when somebody wants to join me. Now, I am following along with a sketch support sketch, which is a free sketch. I am using, I believe it's number 38, but I'm loosely following one of the single page modifications, which is found in the bonus PDF that's available for purchase on Scrapbook Generation. So I will link to the free sketch as well as the PDF. So I have been keeping my kit in this box, mostly just to make sure everything stays together. I don't love keeping it in this box, but at this point, all of my iris containers are kind of used for other things at the moment. I desperately need to clean my closet of doom, but I'm not mentally prepared for that. So for now, all of it is just in this box. Now, when I originally was looking at that sketch, I was kind of drawn to the 2x2 squares. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought that there was a cut apart sheet that had some 2x2 squares on it. Turns out there is, but it's this sheet right here that has all the numbers on it, and I don't love that the numbers are all in black. And I think all together I'm using 25 squares with my, my photos are counting as those. So with them being numbered, I just didn't love that. So I just had to keep kind of going back through and coming up with something different. I pulled out yellow stripes from the petite prints and that Merry and Bright title, and that's pretty much my jumping off point for this. I'm going to go through and pull out some other patterns that I think I can die cut from. I'm going to die cut some stuff from the 6x6 pad, and this is where I had to pivot, and I had to pivot hard. So I cropped my photos in Photoshop to 2x2s. I dropped them onto a 4x6 canvas. They all snapped together. These should be 2" by 2" squares. So I'm not really sure why, but this one right here, I was like, wait, why is the picture of my son larger than 2 inches and this other one is smaller? I checked the other ones. I was very confused. So I was like, I don't have time for this. If I'm scrapbooking at night, it's because I'm trying to get things done. So I was like, okay, let me go get some square dies and we're gonna pivot a little bit. Originally, I was just going to use my trimmer to cut out 2" squares and I was going to stitch on them. These are the only square dies that I have. I really do need to invest in just a basic set of square dies. It's on my list of things to throw on a order the next time I order from somewhere. These ones have a stitched detail on them. These are very old, they're very retired, and I believe they are from My Favorite Things. The only advice I can give you is to just keep your eye out for sales, check different things. There's so many different manufacturers that have like good basics. Usually they'll call them like stacks or nested shapes or something like that. I think almost every brand has a set of like squares and circles. So I'm going to make my process a little bit longer by die cutting all of my photos and all of my pattern paper squares. I don't mind this because I enjoy die cutting, and also everything's going to line up a little bit better than if I cut it myself. Now, I did show you that little tag I actually cut from because I realized that it had a good pattern on it, and let's be honest, I'm probably not going to use a lot of the tags. They're one of those things that I tend to forget about, so they kind of get die cut from and whatnot. So I went through and die cut from anything and everything. If I needed a smaller pattern, I got it from the 6x6 pad. I did have a little bit more of a focused search on choosing things because the Merry and Bright title, the letters are in rainbow order, and I wanted to use one of the little die cuts that has like a string of lights and they're in rainbow order. So I'm sure you know where my brain went. Originally, I was just going to have like a big mix of different colors going on, and I was like, no, we're going to go rainbow order. So I just had a row of red, pink, green, and blue, and then I filled in the middle with just kind of what I would consider neutral, which I think that one I struggled the most with. So I mixed in some of the more busy, like white printed ones, knowing that the title's going to cover up the majority of those. You'll see a little bit of it peeking through, and overall you'll still get the sense that that row is like white. So I did use my ruler to line up that first row and then the like left edge. Everything else from there, because these are die cut and they literally, these are all the exact, like I did not, there's no way I could have messed these up. Everything lined up so nicely. So knowing that I'm more than likely going to keep these dies out on my desk. I think if you, if you follow Allison Davis online anywhere, you know, she's got 2 classes coming up with 6x6 type of stuff. So I'm going to be die cutting a lot. Now, I will say, she's screaming through the internet right now because it didn't occur to me to gut this yellow petite print, and I should have. 100% I should have. It's not in my, like, habit to gut paper. I was kind of laughing to myself when I was editing this because a lot of those squares are from 12 by 12 petite print papers, and I was so good. I did not cut them from the corner. I gutted like a little 3-inch square from somewhere towards the center so that I could still use those petite prints to like matte photos or use as like a full background like this. I was so good to do it on the little squares and not the whole layout. I just thought that was hysterical when I went to go edit this, and I was like, oh, she's gonna text me and be like, why did you not gut that yellow? And I'm gonna be like, well, I forgot. If I'm being honest, I forgot, and it didn't even occur to me because it's not something that I generally do often. So it's not something that pops up into my brain. Now, I split my journaling up. Originally, I thought, oh, I'll just have a couple lines. It'll fit on one square. I had a little bit more than that, and with this being like a 2-inch at its widest section in each square, that wasn't going to work. So I just broke it up to where like one sentence is up in the red section, and then a longer sentence I'm going to have go across this green into the aqua and have it take up like 2 squares. I thought that was just kind of fun. And I did put all of these up on foam adhesive. And I think it's after this clip. When I get to the point that I'm embellishing, you guys, the footage was so long because it was just me flipping through product, taking forever to decide on something. When I did decide on it, I would put foam adhesive on it. That takes a while. So I cut all of that out, and you're literally just going to see me like place it on the layout. So hopefully you guys don't notice like all the cuts, but if it looks like I'm putting things down like super quick, I'm not. I promise. I cut a bunch of stuff out because I don't think anybody wants to sit here and watch me put foam adhesive on the back of a bunch of die cuts while I listen to an audiobook. But I that's the relaxing part for me. I've said before, I don't love the embellishing process, but when it's in smaller chunks like this, where I just have like little squares to focus on, I actually enjoy embellishing smaller things like this. It's either smaller things like this, a giant scene, and those are like the 2 things I enjoy. The traditional like 3 type of clusters, I think I just don't enjoy that as much, so that's why I say I don't like to embellish, but I think it just depends on the design. So I am somewhat keeping my embellishments tone on tone to the section of the layout that they're on. And all of the foam adhesive is the Scrapbook.com brand. I love the 1mm size. I think it just is just enough adhesive, or just enough dimension for me. The little Santa chat bubble, I couldn't really find anything that was like aqua that I wanted to put on there, and I didn't want to cover up like all his little faces. So I felt like having the chat bubble there was a good solution. I took 2 of the candy canes and made a heart out of them to go on that candy themed paper. All of the snowflakes got matching colored hearts popped up onto them. And then because I had used that Santa chat bubble, I actually was kind of on the hunt for some more of those chat bubbles, but I'm looking for like size and color. Embellishing with tone on tone type of like say rules or whatever is actually easier for me because I'm not looking at everything. I'm just doing quick flip throughs and looking at colors. I couldn't find anything that was like white or neutral that I loved for these areas, so I'm actually going to use these little like sparkle die cuts. There's a ton of them, so I felt like this was like a good use for those. I will say I didn't use any of the enamel shapes on this one, mostly just because they're, with them being enamel, they're super shiny, and I'm using the cardstock lights here. So my brain was just like, no, these don't match. Everything kind of needs to be more matte. So I left those in the box. Those I've yet to use any of them, but I'm not really worried. I've done this, like I said, 4 other times. I will eventually cut into and use a little bit of everything. It's just, the puzzle pieces have to fit for my brain to say, this is going to work here. Came back in with 2 more chat bubbles in matching colors, and then at this point I'm like, okay, I decided I wasn't going to stitch on the little squares. I'm almost done, and I'm trying to decide if I want to stitch a border around the whole thing, like on the yellow. So I mistakenly asked a friend. It wasn't Lisa, she was busy, and a friend said yes, so stitch I did. So out came the ruler again. I prefer this over the T-square ruler, I think because I tend to measure like visually. I don't trust me putting pressure on our T-ruler for it to be straight, but I can line up all those little lines, no problem. I thought it would be fun to break up the border stitching with some of those little shaker bits. So I took 3 of the yellow stars and measured out how much space they would take up, lined up as a border, and I'm going to mark off like a section for those on all 4 sides. Not really like, it's not the same distance from like the corners or anything. I just kind of eyeballed it. And then as I go through and pierce the holes, I'm not going to pierce holes in that section, and it's going to be just flat cardstock there so that I can come back later and glue those little stars in. So took my layout downstairs, stitched on it while I watched TV, and then I came back up, and I'm going to add 3 of these stars. I thought this is something I've been waiting to do ever since I bought them. This was one of the ideas that was just like screaming at me from my brain, and so I knew that this was probably going to come up pretty early in the process. I think this is just a fun little detail to add to something like this. It breaks up that stitching. It gets these little shaker bits onto the layout. I did consider adding some to the middle and the squares, but there comes a point where my brain and my creative process says like, no, it's fine. The embellishments are balanced. Everything looks good. Like, it's okay to stop here. So that was what I did. I did realize that other than having the sticker that says December 25th, I do need to at least write the year on the back of this and get it in an album as soon as the series is over, so I know where it goes. So detail photos. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget that Lisa's going to have her layout number 2 posted today as well. It will be linked in the description box along with anything I can think of that you may be looking for. And if you missed the start of this series, I will make sure that the playlist available here is for Creating with Collections Volume 5. And I will catch you guys later.